terms of when we talk about the habit stacking principle, I guess to some extent it's a good in training. I guess if you're doing like a 5 kilometer time trial, or you're at race pace, there's a bit of I think a challenge there where you kind of start to focus more on the music or the podcast, and you kind of slip out of your splits, like your pace, and then sort of focus more on that, and that can sort of impact the intensity in which you're running at. In terms of tracking your intensity, do you have any like specific heart rate monitors you use, or any technology that you're kind of using at the moment?
I just wear my watch and just,
Yep.
yeah, I don't really track my heart rate. I sort of like to see my VO2 max if it's gone down, but
Yeah.
every now and again, me and my mate see what his resting heart rate is and what mine is, and we have little battles of see who's fitter. But no, I just run to feel now. I sort of, if it feels good one day, I'll run a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
If I'm feeling a little bit sore, then I'll just slow it down. I sort of don't look at too much data, because then it just overcomplicates things. It's like
Yeah.
my watch always tells me that I'm overtrained or overexerted. I think it says that I need 52 hours recovery, or 72 hours. It always comes up with, but then I'll just go out and run the next day. So if I was going to listen to my watch tell me when I'd run, I probably would never run. So, and I don't know how accurate they are either.
Yeah. So I assume you have a Garmin in that case.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So you obviously that interprets how long you need to recover and that kind of thing. It becomes a bit like analysis paralysis to some extent, doesn't it? Where you start like looking at everything, your sleep, your splits, your resting heart rate, your VO2 max, all those kind of things. Essentially, I guess the thing I wanted to talk to you that's quite pertinent for you, being a guy that's, obviously the listeners who are listening to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, they won't see the video content, but they can jump on the YouTube clips for NORMLESS. But you got a lot of tats, mate, and it's a common thing these days. A lot of tattoos. But I actually learned, one of the things I learned recently was that actually tattoos can actually affect the transmission of light from your heart rate monitor, whether that be on your wrist or your activity monitor on your wrist, in terms of picking up your heart rate. So it's actually affect the accuracy of those readings, which I found quite interesting. Have you ever noticed anything like that on your runs? Do you wear it on, I assume your left and right wrist is covered. Is that?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
coming from neck to toes. Yeah. No, I've never noticed. Maybe I'm fitter than I am. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I guess.
I've never really noticed. I don't really check it too much, where like I don't analyze the data and notice that I'm running quicker, but then my heart rate's gone up or gone down or anything like that. But does it say it's an accurate reading, or does it make you?
I think the heart rate monitors these days, the activity monitors, seem to be quite accurate, and they're quite good. But it was just something I listened to recently. I probably have to look into a little bit more to really elicit some of the finer details of the research. But there's something interesting I thought, bringing up with yourself, considering you have so many tattoos, and whether it's something that maybe, you didn't have a tattoo on your left wrist and you've got a recent tattoo and now your heart rate's out, or something of that nature. I don't
I got
know,
a resting heart rate of 20, but my
maybe
tattoo is
maybe
stronger
someone
out.
listening that's had a similar experience might come forward and let us know. But the other thing is the trail running these days. So I did the city to surf, the 14K. This was all like a COVID thing, similar to a lot of people, out of COVID, was gyms are closed. Let's get into a bit of running. But I got into running, and then did the city to surf, did the half marathon, did the marathon. And then I was like, well, what's the next thing if you're going to do another run? What's the next step up from that? And a lot of trail running, or bush bashing, whatever people call it. But apparently, when you do the trail running, there's a lot of people who are noticing that their VO2 maxes are like dropping off a cliff once they go from running on flats like the road to trail running. And what they're finding is that because, well, your VO2 max on those devices is calculated by how often and how fast you run. That's basically, if you've been wearing your device for a period of time, your VO2 max has been established by that certain device. And then when you're doing trail running, you tend to run slower because of all the hills, and you're running through a different terrain, but your heart rate tends to be higher. And so this estimates a drop in your VO2 max. And so it's a really interesting phenomenon and I was going to again ask you if you have experienced anything of that nature. Have you done any trail running or?
No, I hate the trails. Actually,
Hate them.
I
Yeah.
love open roads. Yeah, I don't really run trails. because there are some trails around my area, but it's like a 25-minute drive, and I don't like driving to run. I'll just leave my front door and run. But
Run to run. Yeah.
yeah, I've never heard of that. It's quite interesting.
But apparently the Garmin's are really good because they allow you to select the terrain that you're running on, and then this kind of is preventing this from happening, or that like it accommodates that you're running on different terrain than you normally would. So that's another really interesting thing that I found there. But I think for anyone out there who's like looking to get a heart rate monitor, I think the gold standard is those chest straps, as opposed to something sitting on the wrist. So like a polar heart rate monitor with a chest strap's probably the best way to go there. But besides the Normatec, your Garmin, is there anything there that you would recommend for anyone else who's kind of getting into running, or they're in the early stages trying to work out, what's the best way to monitor? I know you said you weren't really into a lot of the different technologies or, fads out there, but is there anything in particular that you found really useful yourself, whether it be apps or anything of that nature?
Yeah, I sort of a few things. When I first started running, I was trying to get my cadence up. So anyone knows the cadence, like how many steps per minute. So if you want to check your cadence, obviously it's going to vary from person to person. Like we're not all built the same, but I think the average they recommend is 180 steps per minute. And I'm obviously a little bit taller, so I'd take a little bit less. But just even a metronome just to check in, like just a monotonous sound in your ear. You just set up to 180 and you just put it on. It's just like beep, beep, and just trying to step like that.
Yeah.
If you are getting injured, that'll help a lot from overstriding. And just a good pair of shoes, I think. I think that's the best thing. Just getting a good pair of shoes, going to a good running shop, and just getting fitted up by a professional. Don't just look online and go, I'm going to get the Nike Vaporflies and assume that's going to be good for my foot, because a lot of time people shouldn't be wearing those. How if they pronate or supinate, how their foot lands and how their foot's built as well. Like if they've got a no arch or a high arch, you need different shoes to accommodate that. But yeah, I think a metronome, just checking in. And also the headphones I've been running in are the shock ones. Have you seen like they go over your ears, but they vibrate?
Yeah,
So
I
you
think
can still hear everything. Like nothing goes in you. It sits on the front of you. They're weird looking things. And you can still hear like cars coming and stuff like that. But you can also listen to music at the same time. I think it's probably the safest way to run. So I used to run with these big headphones on, and then I got some sort of earbuds which you can't hear anything outside. So I think if you are running on the road or running around the streets, and getting sort of those headphones where they shock in, their wireless as well.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in that. I was running around with these Beats on for a while, but then I just sort of made them like my podcast headphones. But even running with these, you take them off after a while and you realize how heavy they are, especially when you do those longer runs. So I think, those Beats or I think I've seen those Beats ones now that are like over the ear, and they kind of
Yeah.
really good as well, because I find that the AirPods I've got at the moment with the little buds on them at the end, they kind of pop out of the ear frequently. And they're obviously the battery life I find isn't as good. So some good tips out there for anyone who's listening that is getting into running or wants to find a pair of good headphones to use. I think that's really, really useful information, mate.